Yep, I'm back. With the summer now in full swing, we do have another animated film to review that came out this weekend alongside Elio. And it's also a big film coming out from one of our top players working today in animation. This one is from Sony Pictures Animation, whom I would say alongside Pixar is probably one of our best animation studios right now and has been on fire. They've been cracking out some bangers this decade, which includes their incredible Spider-Verse trilogy, and they have two new animated films that are coming out this year, so let's start off talking about the first one. Their latest film to be released since Across 2 years ago is titled K-Pop Demon Hunters, a new animated film that is about, well, a K-pop girl group who also work as demon hunters. So basically you get exactly what the title promises. And this definitely looked like a pretty fun watch. It really did look insane and crazy, but also just action-packed and fun, and filled with a lot of cool stylized tricks that Sony has been pulling out of their sleeves ever since they debuted it in Into the Spider-Verse onto the world 7 years ago. And this is a film that I've really been keeping track of ever since it was first announced back in 2021. The film is directed by former DreamWorks storyboard artist Maggie Kang, as well as Chris Applehans, who previously directed Wish Dragon at Sony Pictures Animation, which I did find pretty good. So it was pretty interesting to see what these two could pull together with this one. That being said, I do wish that this film could have gotten a theatrical release, since instead it ended up on Netflix. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure why. Like, Mitchell's, Wish Dragon, Vivo, and even Hotel Transylvania Transformania coming out on streaming, I get. The pandemic was still lingering in studios' minds, the box office hadn't recovered, and studios had still assumed there was money in streaming. I wish I could have gotten to see those films in theaters. Well, these three mainly. I really don't think we needed a fourth Hotel Transylvania movie, but I get why these films came out on streaming when they did. I even understand why Sony's next film, Fixed, is coming out on Netflix. I'll talk about it a bit more when I review that film in August, but that had been dumped by New Line Cinema from theatrical release, and no other major company stepped up to buy it. And even Columbia themselves, for some reason, didn't want it, which I guess because they thought the film wasn't going to be a huge financial hit. That's my guess. I don't like it, but I get it. But this, though? Why did this go to Netflix? I'm really not sure, and I kind of feel bad that it didn't go to theaters, because I've already made it clear that I'm just not huge into watching new movies on streaming anymore, since I find the movie theater experience much more enriching than watching a new film at home. Movies just don't leap off the screen at home as they do in theaters. And man, I really do wish I could have seen K-Pop Demon Hunters in theaters. Not just because it could have been cool to see, but also because this is another great animated film from Sony Pictures Animation, and another firm demonstration of how they are operating at a level that is far higher than some of their competitors. I really had a lot of fun watching this. While it may not be a film that fully rises with the heights of something like The Mitchells vs. the Machines or the two Spider-Verse films, it's a film that more than demonstrates that Sony can still make an animated film that more than rises to the occasion, and delivers a lot of energy and fun while offering something much deeper than you would expect. This really had a lot of surprises up its sleeves. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the story. It takes place in South Korea, which for years has been tormented by demons who feast on people's souls, until three women rose to the occasion and defeated the demons through song, creating a barrier called the Hanmoon, which is created through people's love of their voice to help keep the demons away from the innocent. For generations, a different group of female singers have become pop stars to keep this barrier up, and this current generation is a K-pop group called Huntrix, which consists of Rumi, played by Arden Cho, Mira, played by Mei Hong, and Zoe, played by Ji Young Yu. The girl group has been working tirelessly to defeat demons, while also keeping up on their pop star image, while Rumi is worried about the girls finding out about a troubled secret of hers. Though things get even more complicated when the Demon King, Giwi Ma, played by Byung-hyun Lee, sends some demons to the surface disguising themselves as a boy band called the Saja Boys to steal the girl group's fans, led by their leader, Jinu, played by Ahn Hyo-seop. From there, the trio have to figure out how to defeat the boy band to protect Korea from the demons invading, while Rumi starts to wonder about Jinu and his past, and if he could possibly hold an answer to helping with her troubles. So, as you can tell by the premise of the film alone, that this is going to be a very goofy and silly film. I mean, a K-pop girl group defeating a group of demons disguised as a boy band is inherently a silly idea, and the film just rolls with it, which is easily one of the biggest benefits. And I say this because I do think the story is probably the weakest element of the film. The film does get into familiar territory, especially with the story about a demon slayer destroying demons and protecting the public, which is not an uncommon story for animation. There's a really great anime of this name called Demon Slayer, which highly recommend, by the way. Also very excited for the Infinity Castle saga. But I've said before that it's always the execution that matters to me more than its originality, and I do think that the story's execution, while not bad, is a bit clunky at times. Again, it's not horrible by any means, and I was never annoyed or bored with what was happening as we follow the girls, but I will say that the first two acts of the film are a bit all over the place with how the scenes were presented. It bounces from moment to moment constantly, and it does seem a bit unfocused at first, especially as it lays out the ideas and situations. There are some noble touches to this that I do like, though. For instance, when we're introduced to the girls, the film shows interviews with their fans describing who they are and what their personality and background is, and I thought that was actually really clever. That was a very nifty way to reveal exposition. And the way some of the scenes play out are really great. The opening scene with the girls on a plane battling some demons and then landing at their final concert on the world tour was really good and a perfect hook to show the case the talents of the girls and their skills as fighters. Though the way it does showcase their struggle and battle with the boy band is kinda all over the place. It feels a little discombobulated and unable to fully stick the landing in terms of sequence structuring, and it was something that definitely needed work. That being said, the one thing that this story made up for is its energy, because it's contagious and fun. The film is pumping non-stop with being silly and over the top, while showcasing the girls being awesome and goofy, and that's ultimately the charm. It's a hilarious ride, and I was smiling throughout the whole thing as we watched them play out with battling the band, trying to relax, and Rumi also dealing with her secrets. Like I said, it's never boring, and I didn't even find myself tired while watching it. It doesn't go overboard with its energy, and it's just exceptionally fun as well. The film also has some great commentary about fan culture and how insane fandom can be with the way pop stars respond to them, which I also found pretty clever, and the visual comedy also especially sticks the landing. I'll talk about it a bit more when I get to the animation, but I'll just say there's one joke involving Jinu's demon tiger and a flower pot. That was comedy gold. I was laughing quite hard from that. Though, as much as I do think the first acts are flawed with the clunky storytelling, the movie really fully comes alive in the third act. In my opinion, that's when it fully finds its footing and it becomes great. Without getting into spoilers, I will say it deals with some interesting themes that I was not expecting to see out of this. And it also gives double meaning to the title, and I thought it was genius. It really enhanced the film big time and was something that truly made it work. Though, if there was one shining star throughout the film that made this film really work, it's easily the animation, because it's fantastic. This is another stellarly crafted film from Sony, and one where they can continue to still show their stylized innovations to great effect. While it doesn't go for a full stylized look like Spider-Verse or Mitchell's, which had more comic book and felt-tip marker looks, this film still shines with how thrillingly crafted the animation is, especially during the battle sequences. The action is superb, and it's easy to follow and just dazzling and colorful. This is a film that pops, and I would probably call it among Sony's best-looking animated films to date. And it's also a film that firmly demonstrates that Sony is probably the best at using limited frame rate for their animated films, which makes the copycats look that much worse in comparison. Though the big thing that gets the push for this film is the character animation, because the facial expressions are easily the film's star. They are comedy gold. They really go over the top and are so exaggerated, and it's hilarious. Especially when the girls see the boy band for the first time and realize how hot they are. It's really, really funny. It's pretty clear that Kang and Apple Hans took a lot of influence from anime and poured it into this. And honestly, I think this is probably the funniest anime influenced faces I've seen in an animated film since Turning Red. If anything, the animation in this film reminded me a lot of Turning Red. And if you know me, that is a huge compliment in my book. Speaking of the characters, I'd also say most of them are pretty fun. The girl group have tons of great chemistry together, and they bounce off each other so well, and all have some fun personalities, with Rumi being the sensible leader, Mira being the tough and unflinching one, and Zoe being the goofball, and also my personal favorite. She easily gets the biggest laughs in the film, and was always a bright spot in every scene she's in. Though, it is Rumi who gets the most focus, and she's a pretty stellar protagonist, especially as she battles an inner struggle with herself, which is quite painful and sad to see. I won't say what this struggle is, since the trailers don't, but needless to say, it's what makes the third act really stand out. And while the boy band themselves don't get a whole lot of development, I did find Gino an interesting character, as we see his own struggle with working with the Demon King, and he's haunted by a past that greatly torments him. And there's also other small characters that do have some great moments too. Ken Jeong does get a bit of laughs as the girl group's manager, and Daniel Day Kim has a small bit part in the film, and he really has a funny scene playing a scam doctor. And there is one more thing that we should probably talk about this movie, and that's the music. I mean, it would be foolish for me not to talk about the music in a film that follows a musical group. I don't really have that much experience or knowledge with K-pop, but I surprisingly really dug the music in this. If I had to pick the two best songs in this film, I'd say the bubbly song Golden and the battle sound Takedown are easily the best. Those were bops and they just slapped. Great stuff. So, yeah, I think that sums up K-pop Demon Hunters in a nutshell. It's great stuff. Even if the story does come across as clunky at times, it more than makes up with it with its strong energy, comedy, and fantastic third act with great themes, dazzling animation with tons of anime influence, and hilarious characters who are pretty quirky but fun. It's flawed, but I still think this is another great film from Sony Pictures Animation that is more than worth checking out on Netflix. Again, it's a shame that it's on there and not in theaters, because this would have killed on the big screen, but hopefully one day it can get that treatment. So, I'm going to be giving K-pop Demon Hunters a 9. I'll admit I could be overpraising it, but I think that third act really delivered the punch to earn that grade. There's been a lot of innovative stuff coming out of animated films lately, and Sony has really been the kings of that with what they do. And this film is certainly no exception. Even if it might not rival among the best of the best they've put out, it's still a film that has the style, song, and energy to full-on kill.